Sequencers often conjure memories of powerful hypnotic Giorgio Moroder's synth patterns in a disco song, or stern minimalist pulses in a documentary about 1970s industry. But they can also be gentle creatures, creating magical, suspended spaces. Let's do a deep dive into some ideas one could achieve with a couple of sequencers and a gate mat module. One great way of using sequencers is to use them as harps doing sort of Hollywood arpeggios. In this case, I have the gate of my keyboard controlling the go button. What it does is that the sequencer goes as long as the key is pressed down, and then when the key is released, the sequencer stops. So it's an on-off switch. And then the pitch of my keyboard is into the add input. And what that does is that it changes the key of this arpeggio essentially. And it's calibrated to go 1 volt per octave with your keyboard. So if you play a fourth up in your keyboard, the sequencer will go a fourth up. And this allows you to do chord progressions of sorts, as long as they're all the same type of chord. Or if you have two, you can have another arpeggiator doing a different chord. For example, I have a minor here that I gate and start with the gate switch of my ribbon controller. But you could use like MIDI channel 2 if you have a keyboard that is split, or 2 keyboards. And then I have the gate for my keyboard, starting the other one. And in this case, I have the envelopes controlling the VCA through the start and stop gate instead of through the gate of the sequencer. And I do this to have this more mellow type of attack of these arpeggios, like so. If you put just enough reverb, this can be more lulling and less like jarring than starting with a harsh attack. It makes it more like clouds of harmony. We can make this random as well. If I press the manual step and the set end together, now it's random. And this can be a great way to create also like a self-generating patch that goes ad infinitum. This instead is the gate coming from the sequencer. While for this second sequencer, I'm still using one global gate on-off coming from the ribbon controller gate switch. Or I can put both in random, and in both cases the gate from the sequencer is now controlling the VCAs, and the keyboard and the ribbon controller gate are controlling just the start-stop, and it sounds something like this. In this case I have two sequencers. I can control the start and stop with the go button, one from the gate of my keyboard and one from the gate of my ribbon controller. They're going through two different paths, controlling two different VCOs into two different filters, into two different VCAs with two different envelopes. And they're both in random mode, again by pressing manual step and set end. And these two can coexist in this sort of dreamy space. And if I play at the same time with slightly different settings and slightly different voices, again it creates this like swarm of sound that could be the bass for some ambient solo, for example. And it can end up being something like this, where you just let it do its thing. Let's talk about the gate math, which is your gate's best friend. And this is not supposed to be a deep dive into every single small function that the gate math can do, because that would take hours, and because there's already videos on synthesizers.com that do that very well, and because there's a manual to it. But this is trying to scratch the surface to give you a sense of what it can do musically, what it can do that is really useful and really usable that you could include in your workflow very quickly. And what essentially it is, it's a menu of options that allow you to divide your gate in a million different ways. It can create 4 alternatives to your gate signals. Within the context of sequencers, what it can do is make 2 sequencers go synchronized with each other, but at different speeds. But it's even deeper than that, because you can start creating random versions of your gate where the gate plays only a certain percent, 25%, 50% of the time. And it's not only amazing to control the speed of 2 sequencers, but it's amazing to create subdivisions of the gate to contour different parts of modular. You could have a sequencer go, but have the filter opening up at a polyrhythm with the way the sequencers is going. You could have a sequencer go, but change only the FM of one of the oscillators just some of the time through a random subdivision of that gate. This helps to keep your modular alive, your pattern from feeling stale. The beauty of doing it hands-on is that you can fall in so many happy accidents by just patching things and see what happens. And the way the gate math works essentially is that you have your menu. You can set any of these options and any of these options, and then you assign whatever this configuration is to one of these 4 buttons. All you do is you press it once and it's assigned. You can have the gate math receive a clock from another LFO, or you can have it simply coming in internally. And in that case, this knob decides the speed of the internal clock at which the gate math will go. But let's say that you have an external LFO controlling the speed of the gate math. And let's say that you want the first output to just be simple 8s. So you go to the first option that has 0, 1, and 1.33. And the option here, 1, 2, 3, decides which one of these 3 options on the menu is going to be. So let's say that you want the second option, which is 1. 1 divided by 1, same thing. Same thing as the input gate. You just go to option 2, which is the middle option of this 0, 1, and 133. And then you want it as a gate. You could have it as a trigger, which is a smaller square wave. Or you can have it bilateral, where the ups and the downs are in equal size. Well, let's say you want it as a gate for now. And you want it normal, or you can have it inverted, where we'll see in a minute, it can do upbeats. So let's say that you want it divided by 1, normal and gate. All you do is you press, and now it's assigned to the first one. And so it goes like this. And I can change the speed. With the LFO. Great. Let's say that I want the second sequencers to play at the same speed of the first one, but I wanted to do a polyrhythm with it. And let's say that I wanted to do 2 against 3. In that case, I will divide the gate speed by 1.5, so that for every 3 gates on the first one, there's 2 on the second one. And all I do is that I go to this option that is 1.5, 2, and 2.5. I'll select option number 1, normal gate, press the button. And now when I start them together, this one is going to do the 8s, but this is going to be 2 against 3. Let's say that I want, though, the third one to be 4 times as fast as 1 to do 16th, let's say, or 30 seconds if this were 8. Then I go to the multiplication. I'll go to the option that has 3, 4, and 8, select option 2, the one in the middle, assign it to the third one. Let's slow it down a little bit to hear it. Now let's say that I want this one to go twice as fast as this. All I have to do is go to the multiplication here to the top. There's 1.5, 2 and 2.5. I select the one in the middle, option 2, normal, gate, assign button number 3, and all of a sudden this one will go, and this will go twice as fast. And you can start switching back and forth where you'll do. Okay, let's say now this is going half speed, this is going twice the speed of this one. Let's have the 2/3 control the filter. Or I can have, let's say I want a random version of the gate that is coming in to play only part of the time. I'll go to the random option. Let's say I select option 1, assign it to the 4th, and all of a sudden this 4th, and let's say that now is gonna control the 2nd oscillator. And let's say this goes back to the 1st. See, now this plays only part of the time of that gate. And now let's say that I want the filter of the first one to go 2/3 with the CD. And let's say that you want to go the step further. You could make the first one and go in random mode by pressing manual step and set end. And this is the magic of the gate math, that you can do this for an entire day and then land on something really special. That maybe you didn't really thought about at the beginning. And the configuration, this is just configuration number 1, but it has 6 of it, so you could have 4 outputs programmed for each configuration, and if you're doing a live set, you could have every song organized in a certain way and be dependent and be ready to go. Or if you have certain things that you like to do, you can just have them stored, ready to go for your next composition. Oh, and this is just with the gate being in a normal position, but we could invert it and create, okay, let's say that we want to have one oscillator doing the version of the other. So we have one source is this as an 8th note. Now this other guy, we can have it do the same thing where it's divided by 1. But this time we're gonna invert it. Assign it here. Now, and we can make it random. And we could have a 2/3 but inverted going here and have that control the filter. You see the possibility for this in self-generating patches is just infinite. Another thing that I think people don't realize is that you can control the speed of your sequencers from your keyboard. If you connect the gate output from the MIDI interface and you're playing a keyboard, you have like a sequence in your DAW or something. Whatever comes out of the gate and goes into the oscillator, if it's set to external source, you can do anything you want. You can select the length of the gate, like you could do staccato, and then do longer ones. It becomes like an instrument you're playing. You could do and you don't even have to play the same note, you can play any note you want, so. So that's another way to be creative with your rhythm. And finally, I think a thing that people don't realize about sequencers is that they can be audio sources as well. And to do that, you have to make them go really quickly, but you can. And to do that, you use a VCO or an LFO, an audio range, and you use the output of that as the oscillator source for your sequencer. And then you can control the pitch of that original source, VCO or LFO, with your keyboard and the gate as well, and you get something like this. And what happens is that essentially this becomes a wave generator, wave table type of situation where each step is a different 24th part of the wave. And of course you can choose how many steps you want to use. You can start changing. And of course, you could use your second sequencers to control the pitch of that source LFO. And the gate of that sequencers for your gate. And all of a sudden you get something like this. And what's amazing is that it tracks really well. Like with the keyboard, you play like it was a normal keyboard, except it's your sequencers now becoming a VCO. My friend Glauco Medori taught me I did this, and it's fun. Now go and get your own and go play.